How's it going, everybody?
Good. It's going good.
Never sure if that's rhetorical or not, but yeah. My name's Ryan. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, I've been working on a project called Mr. Hoverboard for the better part of oh, there we go. Better part of the last year.
Thank you.
Thanks, JC. Thanks, JC, for putting this on and keeping sure that keeps happening, even though Dave's out of town tonight too. But anyway, yeah, my name's Ryan, and I've actually got my project here, which I'll demo after we're all said and done here. They've actually allowed me to use the space in the lobby, which is a little more advantageous for hoverboarding, which is just a great sentence to say. But I guess, I don't know, how many of you have seen the project before? I've brought in here once or twice. Okay, so not too many people familiar. I guess it makes more sense when you see it, but I just want to talk a little bit about going from the prototyping stage to manufacturing. It's been a really interesting path. Had a working prototype last December, and it basically took from then until now to find someone to do the CNC work and the research and development, all the while doing it at a cost that I can afford with just what I earn working in a restaurant. So been waiting tables for a while and trying to find my way out of that, and at the end of the month here, we're going to be launching, I guess I'm going to be launching, it's really a lot easier to say we're when you're talking about a product, but I'm on Crowd Supply, which is a crowdfunding site. If you're not familiar with it, definitely check it out. It's geared a lot more towards people that make hardware, a lot more towards people that make products as opposed to just, music projects, video projects. It's a little bit more curated. They're also very confident in their success rates. But yeah, one of the interesting challenges of making this hoverboard project is that what I'm selling in and of itself is a board apparatus that you plug 4 leaf blowers into. So it's not all one complete unit. It's really been a struggle to find ways to try to pull that off, and what I ultimately found is that with the demand not being very high, it doesn't make sense to risk a bunch of money, buy a bunch of fans from China, and then not have a method of distribution set up and just kind of hope it works out. So really this is the first step of what I hope will eventually lead to this potentially being an in-store product that's completely finished. But JC's walking with it right here. And it's, I don't know, I guess as someone that really enjoyed the prototyping process and just that idea of going and working on something and really digging and answering questions, it was a lot of fun to make a prototype, and then to get this made to a point where it can be reproduced at the push of a button. It's a very frustrating, very time-consuming, very misleading process, I'd say. Had the first company that was going to manufacture it drop out after a month of saying they were working on it. And really got lucky. I've got Superfab out in Portland, Oregon is manufacturing this for me, and they completely worked with me on price and were just completely supportive the whole way. But even then, it's a lot of emailing back and forth, and you're putting your baby in someone else's hands and trusting they get it right, and you can't be there to tinker and kind of tell them what's what. That said, I think through the process, I made it through about as best as I could expect to, and I'm really excited to get this up and online. But yeah, that's really all I have, unless you have any questions. The demo will definitely make a lot more sense. The product itself, you just twist in leaf blowers and it inflates the skirt around the back here. And when the air comes out, it comes out in such a way that it balances you and creates a small buffer of frictionless air between you and the ground.
So what's your procedure in getting it to the market? I mean, are you going to go to the stores or?
Right now, it's focusing on, a lot of this has been under a weird timeline of trying to get it done before the end of 2015 to coincide with the movies. And so yeah, really a lot of the focus has been get this online, get it crowdfunded, and see what the demand is, and try to take it from there. But the plan at this point has definitely just been a lot of improvisation. This is definitely nothing I ever expected to be working on or saw coming. It's just been a very interesting ride so far.
Can you expand on it and give some advice? from the question.
Oh,
Yeah, what were you thinking? You got a store?
you know, that can be later on offline.
Materials are going to be made out of?
It actually occurs to me, I don't know what kind of wood that is specifically, but on the bottom side there is just PVC skirt. Started out with the prototypes using shower curtains, which I found to be incredibly loud. It vibrated almost like a reed instrument of some type, but now it's much quieter.
I'm just wondering why you went with wood as opposed to going with like fiberglass or something lighter.
Carbon fiber.
Yeah.
Yeah, carbon fiber. It's perfect. Race cars made out of it.
Basically, because what was available, as I was told, this was the best that Superfab could do in terms of meeting price versus feasibility. And yeah, it's definitely a bit heavier than I'd like, and in an ideal world, this would all be made from a plastic mold instead. There's that possibility, so it's still, it's an interim release of a project I hope can go somewhere else too.
And what's the power supply for the leaf blowers? And did you choose that intentionally, or just because that was really your only option at this point?
Well, yeah, so the leaf blowers are powered by lithium-ion batteries. And so when you kind of look at the options of, well, how do I power this thing? You know, the option of trying to go to China and find the motor you need, and then on top of that, working with lithium batteries, which are really a pretty dangerous and pretty crude item. They can set on fire very easily. There's a lot about them I don't like. The particular batteries in this only last for 12 minutes, which is awful, but about twice as good as my competitor, so I'll take it. Yeah, so eventually it became this point of accepting that I couldn't get proprietary fans yet, but at the same time I can step out of the way, let the consumer go and purchase these Black & Decker leaf blowers on their own, step out of the equation so I'm not liable if the battery is busted because Black & Decker made a crappy product.
How many amp hours and what's the voltage?
I know none of these things. I am a simple waiter in very far over my head, just trying to get people hoverboards if they can get them.
Well, you just said that you're depending on Black & Decker, so they make the battery and the fan apparatus, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the answer right there.
I mean, it's a 20 volt battery. Anything else I'm really on, well, actually 18 volt, I think technically, but they call it 20 volt.
So will you ship them as one package, or will you, how will you ship this? And then do the customers just go to Home Depot or whatever and pick up the leaf blowers?
Yeah, that's the idea. I guess with the crowd supply page, we're going to focus on getting a very easy link to purchase leaf blowers separately. But the way this comes in 3 pieces, actually I guess 7 pieces, and it's IKEA'd out. It just comes with a little Allen wrench and you bolt it on in. The 2 discs are separated from the board, and then the mounts for the leaf blowers are separated as well. But yeah, I'm really happy with, if you'd seen how this was before, I kind of had like basically duct lining for air ducts holding the leaf blowers in. It was really dangerous and janky, and to have something now that you can take the product off the shelf, not have to take a hacksaw to it and fit it, it just puts right in. I'm really happy to have something that's a lot more streamlined.
I just want to say something from my experience. I mean, you mentioned it's like giving your baby to someone else. You might give birth to this baby, but in order for this to grow, you have to have a mother, a nanny, a teacher, many people that will feed and nurture until it will grow to be something. So don't be afraid to give your baby away. You're still there, but you have to have help from others. It's only, I mean, this day and age, you have to use a team, advisors, help people that will help from all sides.
And totally, and that's it. You know, it's compromise that you kind of understand going into it. It doesn't make it any easier necessarily, but you know, certainly the ability to be able to let some things go and to give yourself wiggle room. You know, that's the difference between me still sitting at home wishing I had one complete unit and having something that I'm getting ready to bring to customers if they want. Anyone else?
What was your inspiration to do this?
The movies, obviously. Really, it's a weird path that I came to for it. I had finished releasing, I also make a lot of music, and I'd finished my 3rd album, which was this weird little niche album all about competitive running that was kind of made for this specific group on the internet that really enjoyed it, and I was really happy about it, but afterwards I realized I made something for a niche audience that wasn't expecting this. There was no expectation for it, there was no demand for it, but they happened to enjoy it. And it made me kind of flip that question and say, well, what audiences out there are expecting a certain something? You know, who's really looking for something that doesn't have it? And yeah, the timing just kind of fell right in, where I think a week later I saw the hover video, which was a fake hoax video last April. Yeah, just, basically all those hoaxes. I mean, not just them, Hendo, the Lexus commercial, even the hoverboards you see with wheels. Anytime I see something like that, it bothers the hell out of me, because it's not, this is certainly nothing perfect, and it's not the flying skateboard we all want, but in terms of what's available now and what can do what, this is the top of the game right here. The board itself, with shipping, I believe, is going to be $420, and then the leaf blowers will, you can get them probably cheaper, but you'll end up spending about $400 on the leaf blowers. So all in all, less than $1,000, which is more than I'd like. You know, compromise again, but at the same time, compared to a $10,000 hoverboard, it's got potential, I hope.
How far off the ground do you travel?
I mean, that's the weird thing. The skirt inflates, and it's a very thin film of air, really, but it's more about the sensation of the board having nothing but air pushing up underneath it.
So you got to be real careful about staying right in the middle of it.
Definitely,
and the ends down.
You know, that's something, as I continue to go, and you know, you continue to go out and ride it and test it and gather feedback on it, and yeah, one of the things I really want to be able to get is some way that when you start bottoming out on the sides, you're going to continue to roll in one way or another. Yeah, Constantine?
What about balancing?
I don't know. I'm not much of a skateboarder. I know that. I've got enough balance to do that. I've certainly seen some people struggle with it too. You know, I think just like a skateboard, there's certain people that feel natural on that sort of thing, certain people that are never going to step foot on it, and that's okay. Cool. Well,
Have you tried using gasoline engines? Does that work better or worse? Is it too noisy?
I kind of stayed away from gasoline. I guess a lot of the decision to do this was that no one had tried something like this with lithium batteries. I guess there was an episode of Mythbusters where they attempted something with gasoline, and it just seems a bit messy to do with gasoline. Not saying it couldn't be done. Maybe it has more potential, possibly, but batteries seem the way to go at the moment.
And are there any other applications you've come up with other than being on it, you know, like transporting anything, or what?
Yeah, that's a tough part, because hovercrafts are definitely not a new invention. They're a good 300 years old, so whatever purpose you can find from that has already been found, more or less. You know, a lot of thinking about the product is trying to think about, you know, what is its specific application. And growing up, I had like a Razor scooter, if you're familiar with that product, or now one of the really popular ones that's a skateboard-like product is the Ripstick. And these are both things that I was back home a few weekends ago, and they were in the garage, so I of course had to mess with them. And you know, my parents' house is on the lake, and I started thinking about the two products, and I thought if I really wanted to, I could take these around the lake. But there's no way in hell I'd ever want to do that. If I really wanted to get somewhere, I'd use a bike. So in terms of transportation, this is not going to replace, you know, your skateboard in terms of getting around. It's what I ended up using that Razor scooter for. I think my whole childhood was just riding down the driveway, more or less. Which again, when you talk about the price tag, seems a bit absurd, but that's really the kind of toy it is. The kind of thing where you have this small little space where you say, I bet I could do that with it, and playing with the conventions of the streets.
Does it work on water?
I actually have brought it out over water without me standing on it, and it stays above it. I have yet to test I guess in the back of my head, if I can ever transition from leaf blowers to a proprietary fan, I would do so by attempting the water crossing, because I imagine I'm going to get those things wet and break them.
It would push down. There'd be a wave on all sides of it as the air came out. I wonder how far down you would push. And then you have to push the water out of your way as you moved.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, something I've definitely spent a few too many minutes looking on this free side of Barton Springs, trying to figure out how I negotiate that. But I do think it's possible. It's something I'm really excited to do because I just honestly don't know how it'll handle it. But yeah, you never know.
On the little, like the inflatable mattresses, they have some battery-powered fans that are really powerful. You might look on Alibaba and figure out who manufactures those in China, because you probably find some of those somewhere already made that you could use.
Yeah, the Alibaba route is something that, definitely as someone that is pretty unfamiliar with everything I'm doing to begin with, Alibaba scares me a bit, just in terms of getting something out of the box that I'm not sure how it'll work, and then powering it again through batteries. I'm not terribly comfortable dealing with lithium ion, nor do I have the money to hire someone who is. So really, yeah, it's been a lot of what do I have available to me now that I can share with people. At the same time, it's frustrating knowing that leaf blowers are made in China and that this stuff totally exists in an out-of-the-box format. It's a matter of having the means necessary to get it done. It's a hard thing too, because I tell people, I'm working on a hoverboard, and everyone loves to tell me how I'm just sitting on a pile of cash, which I know isn't the truth. Even as we've set it up, the most I can produce before the end of the year will be 100 units, which maximum will only make me about 10 grand, I think. And even then, that doesn't count what I'm beginning to put into it in terms of cost, what I have put into it over the last year. And that's something I kind of accept knowing that hopefully it can lead to something else. Hopefully it can kind of lead to a next step. Recently had actually a similar opportunity to John here. I was a bit in talks with a network to get on a similar reality TV show, which was very exciting, and unfortunately I recently found out it fell through. But that kind of thing I've found happens time and time again in this process of starting something and suddenly someone introduces an idea to you that you start saying, oh, that's it, that's the answer I've been looking for, and sometimes that answer goes away and you can't pin your hopes on it too high. But I think learning to let go of that sort of thing as it either comes your way or doesn't becomes a really valuable practice to have.
Welcome to life.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks so much, y'all. And like I said before, once we're all done here, I'll have it down in the lobby and definitely check it out.
Couple of things. Is there some practical advice that you guys can give?
I'm all ears. I'm pretty clueless up here if you haven't figured it out.
Please.
I think it's a brilliant approach to start out by just letting people buy their own Black & Decker, because then you don't get into the warranty issues and all the other things that they're talking about. And it does lower your liability, but you always have liability on something like this. But kudos to you for making that happen. That's for a first time out, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, not a bad first at bat, I hope. Thanks, though. I appreciate that.
Any other advice?
Just keep swimming.
Josh,
Move forward.
Make it work on a half pipe.
Advice taken. Yeah, I think the angle will have to be soft. I did look into, made a couple prototypes with double-sided hinges and some rollers out in front that could make it possible, but I think you'd need to be confident in the orientation of it before you go up or down, something like that.
Get your CAD files from the fab. And a lot of times they're not willing to part with that, but make sure you have all that stuff. I mean, if you pay for it, you can legitimately get it. Because, I don't think that's going to be viable to ship in wood after your early adopters, because your price is going to have to come way down. And your shipping cost is going to be $80, $90 on something like that.
I was gonna say, yeah, to get it to Texas from Portland was $65, I think, which is, but it could be worse, but yeah, it could definitely be better too.
Because to get out of sort of crowdfunding, that's gonna have to come way down. Shipping costs have to be kind of 10 or 20 bucks. So it's gonna have to be plastic, fiberglass, something. With those CAD files, you can take them to somebody like a Protomold, and I think they can do that size. Which, it's not going to be free, but it's going to be cheaper to do it the second time for that kind of stuff.
All right.
That's great advice.
Just a question. Why do you need a circle? If we go technical here, why do you need the whole circle? Why can you just use the plastic, shower curtain from both sides as a flat balloon kind of thing?
Are you talking about the circle, the big disc, or the circle in the center of the disc? I guess the circular shape comes from the air distribution being as even as possible. Also, just from a balance standpoint. I guess it's been presented to me, the idea of doing it a little more rectangular, but something about the symmetry of it I really enjoyed. Mostly because it mirrors so much of what the skateboard was. The skateboard took a roller skate axle, said, let's put 2 of those there and slap a board on top of it, and all of a sudden they started one of the most successful toys of all time. And this was really similar in that, a lot of people like to think I invented this idea of putting air through a skirt and having it come out, and that's definitely not true. It was someone else's idea that I took, I repurposed, tinkered with the skirt, and said, how do I make this balance properly? And once I did, I was able to slap a board on top of it and hoverboard.
What about the single oval?
That's a really tough part about this is, the shape of it, the shape of the skirt, the air distribution. There's a lot of things that have infinite possibilities, and so a lot of what I've continued to go with is what works, and what, when it came time to get this manufactured, they were kind of throwing some suggestions like that at me, and it was literally a matter of, well, I've got this in my bank account, and we can do it the way I know it's gonna work. So again, compromise and choices that need to be made based on realistic expectations have kind of shaped where it is, but that said, hopefully someday I can experiment a little bit more and find out if there's a more ideal fit.
Is there any help that we can provide? Are there any things you need?
I talked to Brian a little bit earlier there about some provisional patents and the like. I guess right now with getting this up online, I want to make sure that I have my proper disclaimers for people who use it. I'm not quite sure what I need to say to cover my butt if someone falls down and gets hurt on that, other than I went and registered an LLC today. I know that's the legitimate front of it, but the actual verbiage of disclaimers I'm unfamiliar with, if anyone has some advice or connection there.
I can help you look at the contracts, and then we can run it by Brian, who's a lawyer. Brian, can you talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an IP attorney here in town. I work for a firm called Millionaire, which is actually based in Washington State. We're building I've already got a pretty substantial office, and we're building that. Thanks. If you didn't hear me, I'm an IP attorney here in town, and so I've just been talking to JC about maybe coming in and giving you guys some talks on IP law for startups and kind of things you want to be thinking about really early on, even from pre-formation of your company. And so I'd be happy to talk to you guys about any questions you have, and also get some ideas on sort of topics that you might want to hear about. And
great. Great presentation, and I look forward to the demo.
No, I appreciate having a community in Austin that I can come and people are interested in what I'm saying. It's great.
Thanks, y'all. Round of applause, you guys. All right, John, you're up.
Okay. No demos today, just static. Okay, so
if you can stay here, it will probably be best for recording for those that are not here, so they can.
okay, right about here.
That's perfect, man.
I guess if I was on TV, you'd have some gaffer tape and mark it all out so I knew where to walk. So the camera angles sit right. Well, I think, as you can see, I'm John Guy. I'm the creator, inventor. I guess I've got pretty accustomed to calling myself the Grover the irrigation robot right here. Who has seen the TV show? I assume a number of you have seen it, some haven't. It is on cable, and of course, there's a fewer and fewer people have cable these days. So let me tell you a little bit about it. I'm just going to walk through my experience with it.
I'm talking about reality TV, and you may think, well, there's very little chance that I would either A, want to, or perhaps be selected to be on reality TV. Both of those may be true, but I think some of these things apply to just any kind of TV or media-related publicity. And I think it's probably safe to say that for pretty much any kind of startup, at some point you have to deal with the media or find some way to get a significant amount of publicity. Not just if you're doing a consumer play, but even for some of the B2B type plays now, you've really got to find a way to tell your story. So perhaps my story can help you there as we go through it. So let me tell you about Grover to get started with, and I've already put the pointer in one of my pockets and lost it. Where is it? Up there? So Grover is an irrigation robot. It's can either completely replace or supplement your existing sprinkler system. It carries water a few gallons at a time from a refill station and distributes it exactly where it's needed. It's not going to get water on the sidewalks. It's not going to leak like pipes in the ground. It's not going to spray water across into the street. And it's a pretty topical subject right now, of course, with the drought here in Texas. We've got a bit of a break on that. But as we know, California, it's just going from bad to worse as the weeks go by. And other parts of the US and of course around the world, Australia, places like that are facing similar issues. So what I'm going to do is basically tell it from the reality TV perspective, and we'll go from there. So this is Grover before TV. In fact, as I mentioned, there's 3 parts of the system. You'll see that's my prototype refill station made out of some PVC pipe. Grover himself, that looks a little more like a science project. You can see it's got solar panels on top, some drive wheels. I was testing a lot of different things. That particular model has, you'll see, 3 ultrasonic transducers on the front to create a sonar system. And then the moisture beacons that insert down into the soil to tell Grover where to water. You can start with just one in your yard, install in one location. But then the idea is, as you figure out which areas of your yard need special treatment, perhaps there's an area that gets full sun all day, you'd add a beacon there, Grover will pick it up and irrigate that spot.
How do they sense the water?
We've worked through a number of different things, but basically it's just a basic capacitive. There's a frequency that's driven out on one of the electrodes that's then monitored by the other. We've also a number of different schemes that we've used. So it's a little more sophisticated than just the resistive type probes in the ground. Although it's still actually pretty difficult to accurately monitor soil moisture. If you really want to accurately monitor soil moisture, you can spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars. It's a non-trivial problem. As John, I'm sure, can attest.
Could you do temperature? Just do a temperature map and then find the hot spots and water those?
My initial response is I don't think so, but I may be missing something there. There's some pretty sophisticated, the most sophisticated ways use essentially ground-penetrating radar, I believe, actually microwaves. So you're actually exciting the water molecules, and then they measure that somehow, which maybe is a temperature. I don't know exactly. John?
Yeah, the challenge is that the salt varies in the soil. So you've got to correct for that as you go over it somehow. And, capacitive is the cheapest, but not terribly accurate.
Right. For this sort of application, really what you're talking about is relative irrigation, because you know for a certain type of soil type, and you can get some baseline parameters. So really what you're looking to do is balance and go even. So it's that even irrigation that's the key component. Yeah?
Are the sensors powered, or how do they communicate back to the robot?
Yeah, the sensors are powered. The way it works right now and the plan going forward is basically to seal in an alkaline cell, so that rather than being a rechargeable unit, it's a one-time use. But our models are showing with the low power radios that are available now, sub-gigahertz radio, that you can get basically pretty close to the battery life, which is about 7 years for an alkaline cell.
Oh, really? And does something trigger them to start radiating, or do they do this?
Yeah, they have a low power internal clock that periodically sends out a chirp, because you're really only looking for a few updates a day. And it's the sort of thing that you can chirp out. You don't necessarily even need to do a full chirp acknowledge, although there is a way to do that in the protocol. Yeah?
Could you mount it on a hoverboard?
I was waiting for somebody to say that. All things are possible. You find when you do TV show, you get all kinds of suggestions. So actually this whole process started right about a year ago, mid-September last year at Tech Breakfast here at Capital Factory. I did a demo. Somebody in the audience saw the demo and said, hey, I was talking to a person that's casting a new show yet to be named. You should talk to them. So I did, and really that's where it got started. You submit your form. I heard back pretty quickly, as it turns out. They asked for some more information, and then a little after that, there was the casting company got involved. The way they started this out is trying to explain to you what the show is about. Unfortunately, for a first season show, there's really very little information. And the casting company is really just given a profile of people that they want. They really don't know the show. And the casting company comes in, does the casting, and then they exit stage left, and that's the end of it. So it's actually very hard to really find out what a show is about when you're talking to them. This is the actual premise as it came out later when the show aired, but I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. So it's the application, and the way all the casting is done now is with a Skype call. So you get on Skype, you talk to some person at the other end. It's nice. They have their camera on because they want to see how you interact, and they just tell you to be yourself. In fact, one of the things they sent out suggested that you may want to have a couple of drinks beforehand. So I'm not sure how that fits with being yourself. This makes it a little contradictory. So they want you to be fairly loose. They get you to say some stupid stuff, and at that point you're thinking, this is nuts. I really do not want to do, at least for me, this whole TV thing. This feels too much like acting or whatever's going on. So if you get to that point, don't be put off by it. Just go with it. You may give them what you want, you may not, but what they're looking for may not. What you think that, what your perception of what they're looking for may not be what they're actually looking for. They just want to get some tape. They're looking for, I don't know what they're looking for, but I was pretty sure whatever I thought they were looking for, I didn't give it to them. But I got told later that I was number one on their list, so who knows?
What do you mean stupid stuff?
Well, one of the things they asked me to do was just get more and more excited, saying, make me a millionaire, make me a millionaire. And one, I'm an engineer, but I warned them about that. And two, if they wanted me to do stupid stuff on TV, then I would have, there's probably other TV shows I would have applied to. I really wasn't interested in that. Fortunately, none of that came into the equation. So I found out later what the premise of the show was. The bottom line is, months passed, I actually ran out of money, went back to semiconductor business for a while, and then they contacted me because they were supposed to cast the show before the end of the year and actually start running tape by the end of December. So if that had happened, I probably wouldn't have taken a job. As it turns out, I did take a job. Of course, it figures February they contact me and say, hey, you're on the list. I said, sorry, I've taken a job, I'm not interested. Really wasn't too impressed with the whole casting thing. I just want to let this go by. So somebody higher up calls me and says, hey, we really want you on the show. And I said, well, can you tell me about the show? And they said, well, we can't tell you much yet, but it'll be really good. And I said, sorry, still not interested. So then somebody higher up calls and says, okay, this is my first day on the job. I'm the producer, or one of the producers, but there's so many producers, it's crazy. I don't know, was there probably 8 of them on this one show? But this is one of the second to highest producer level, whatever that is. Said, hey, you're number one on our list. We really want you. Here's what the show is about. And this is basically the story he told me. At that point, when the human connection was made and they started to explain the premise of the show, it really started to make sense. So if you do the reality TV show thing, what you want to do is you want to understand the premise as soon as possible. And if they're not explaining it to you, keep asking and get that information. It would have been helpful early on. Okay, so that's the premise. Next step. Okay, so we're coming up, more time passes, there's more calls, a lot of contracts. So you did all the releases with the casting company, and then you're dealing with a production company. And these companies, everybody is a contractor. There's actually very few people that are employed by the actual production company itself. They're all independent contractors. They're all covered by whatever guild it is, the Actors Guild, or I think in many cases. But they're not very good at communicating with each other. It's almost like they call themselves, hey, we're like a startup, but it's one of the most disorganized startups I've ever seen. But they manage to they get the job done, but it takes them a while. So sending out contracts and things often takes you a while to turn them around. You'll find yourself signing the same release form probably 5 times. A lot of information going backwards and forwards. Then all of a sudden they say, oh, we want to come into Austin next week. Can you be available? We're just bringing a small crew of about 16 people to your house for the day. Can we come out the night before because we want to check lighting and angles and stuff like that. So I only had a week's notice in the end. It all happened very fast at that point. At that point, it was really only a week before that they were able to confirm for sure that NBC Universal had picked it up. Now at that point, you're part of the NBC Universal network. I think they did an announcement that it was going to be on CNBC. But they can move networks because there's a whole family of networks, some that you don't even know are connected. So it could move to any network even at that point, I think. So the door knock comes next. They give you only a week's notice. I took some time, set the day aside. And the door knock, if you watch them on TV, it seems kind of cheesy, and I was really hoping they wouldn't do it. But it was actually a genuine door knock. They didn't come in and have cameras and stuff beforehand. They said, hey, this is about when we're showing up, and they do literally knock on your door with the cameras behind and tell you that you've won the Reader's Digest sweepstake. I don't know. So they knock on your door, but the whole idea is to keep it as organic as possible. There's Deanne Bell. She was the co-host. I did not meet her or even know her name until she knocked on the door. So they do try and keep that realistic. So there's me with my wife. Any questions so far? Okay, let's keep going. Anything else I wanted to say about that? Yeah.
How much information they knew about the product before they knocked on the door?
Yes, good question. So I just gave them a little bit of information initially, but over several months they'd asked for quite a bit. And I think I can say this. I mean, there's still things I can't say, but they did have all of my schematics, drawings, every piece of information, the whole story beforehand. And obviously, because they wanted to review the idea. The other thing I'd say is, just because you don't meet all the criteria for applying for a show, you may list you need this, this, this. One of the criteria for this show was to have a patent. And they were very vague about that because there's not many inventions that have a full patent, given how long it takes to get through to that point. And it turns out in the end, some of the inventions on the show had as filing a provisional patent application. So I think the rules are really more like guidelines. If they like your story, they'll go with it. So I wouldn't let any particular qualification, a little bit like a job, if you're close, just go for it.
But you need to expose all your drawing on schematics, everything.
Yeah, and actually that's the thing that you realize as you're getting into this. You get something from them, well, potentially 3 things, I guess. One is obviously publicity. 2, in this case, is help. And then the 3rd thing is money, right? And so if you need to look at all 3 of those and figure out, well, if I get 1 of those, I'm good, or if I get 2 of those, or all 3. But you're getting something from them, and then you're basically, you've got to give them something, and that's the story. So you do have to open yourself up. Others, they will respect your IP. You're not agreeing to give anything to them. They don't take a cut of royalties. There's nothing like that, but you're giving them a story. You've got to remember that. Okay, so the first day of filming in Austin they started rolling tape at 8 a.m. They stopped rolling tape at 7 p.m., so it was a long, exhausting day. What didn't help was, I think, because I don't think it was quite this way for everybody else, was that this was the first day of filming for this series. It's a brand new series, so they were still figuring a number of things out. They had two teams. One team was on their way to, I think, Puerto Rico to do the one that aired last night, I guess, if you saw it, Pac-Bo. The team that came to Austin, this was the first day, so an exec from New York City flew in to sit on our sofa and basically just watch the whole thing go down. It's quite interesting. So a couple of, just one other note, I thought it was curious, they never referred to it as reality TV, it was always unscripted TV, because, you know, reality TV has bad connotations, so there's really apparently two camps of people. There's people that specialize in unscripted TV and those that do scripted TV, so that's the petition, and you generally don't see a lot of movement between the two of them. You're oriented one way or the other.
So how non-scripted was it?
It was very non-scripted.
Completely? There's no,
yeah,
like,
there was no
generally about this?
No. One of the other terms they use is OTF, on the fly. So they do these OTF sessions. They'll do something, Deanne will explain something or say, hey, this, and then she'll exit and they'll take you off to a side where they have another camera set up, and they'll ask you a bunch of questions. And this is where you look at one of the producers and they have a camera off to the side. And they ask you about, you know, well, what do you think about this? Does this, and there's hours and hours and hours of tape that some poor person had to sort through of all of these different things that they ask you about. They just take a few sound bites that go to air. But yeah, they keep it pretty raw and real, actually. And I don't know, after 12 hours, almost 12 hours, you're getting pretty worn out. So yeah. Let's see. Yeah, 11 hours with the mic on too. You have to keep forgetting to turn it off, and it's always bad when you're in your bathroom about to go wash your hands and you're like, oh crap, the microphone is still on. So you just, I guess, asked the sound guy. He said, yeah, he's pretty much heard it all. I guess Rick Perry found out about that, right? Okay, so yeah, of course they want you to do a demo, they want to capture that in Austin, and of course at this point they don't really want it to work, they want it to look bad. So the best thing you can do at this point is fail, and as you saw, Grover, I basically knew that it was unlikely where it was set up to work, and it didn't, but they got what they wanted so we could move on. But all this time, they've already got Bluefish working on the engineering. So we did a call with them, and the Bluefish guys are the real deal. It's a
explain a little bit about Bluefish.
Yeah, Bluefish is the industrial design company that created Grover here, the new Grover. As you'll see, it's looking pretty close to a finished product. So there's two lead guys, and then I think they have a few assistants, but they're really the front. They're the Jamie and Adam of this particular show. That's just reference there. They have an industrial unit that's just packed full of stuff. They've got some high-end CNC equipment. They've got everything packed in there. It's a bit of a wonderland, actually. And I thought at first they might have been a company that was picked because they did a lot of stuff for the film and TV industry, but really these guys are just an industrial design firm that was selected to do this, and really sharp guys. So as I got into that, I got more and more confident that I was going to get something good out of it.
What didn't work?
I'm sorry?
What didn't work?
What didn't work? Well, the clip they showed on TV was Grover refilling, was coming into a line. We talked about getting help on a couple of things. One was the navigation. The other one was just turning it into a product that looked like something somebody would buy. And really what they focused on was the industrial design, as you can see. And that allowed me to be free to continue to push the navigation elements and mapping and things like that forward, which is really more of a software problem anyway.
They had a suggestion on irrigation, right, from the back?
Yes, yeah. Well, I'll go a little faster now. So another trip out to LA, there were several trips out to LA, was to meet the guys at Bluefish. There we are in their lab. That's a shot from TV. if you saw the show, they rolled Grover out. This big unveiling. That's one of the key points in the show. Michael and Martin are there. So this is what they did. They built a refill station, very nicely made out of stainless steel. They felt stainless steel was. There was a lot that we talked about that didn't go to air. They gave a lot of thought into the shape and colors, and they really felt stainless steel was the right material for the garden. And actually, when you set in your yard, it does work pretty much any kind of landscape style. They didn't do any work on the beacons, but obviously they did a lot of work on the design of Grover. They moved, as was just mentioned, the irrigation to the back instead of the bottom, although there's still some trade-offs there. So then, let's see.
Did they work on the solar technology?
No, they did not. They were going to, but they ran out of time. I don't know if you can tell, the solar cell on top there is printed. Well, all solar cells are printed, but this one is a piece of paper. So just to clarify there. One of the things I want to do is customer validation, obviously to get you out of your zone. So we did actually go house to house. Again, this wasn't, this was still unscripted. Basically, they had people signed up that were expecting to do a survey. You can sign up, they got paid. The people whose house, they got paid $100 for a couple of hours of their time, but they thought they were filling out, because the people that do this sort of thing regularly. And I guess I don't know if it happens around Austin, but apparently it's pretty common in the LA. You can pick up a few $100s a week just by having somebody come to your door, filling out surveys. You've already signed all the releases. So that was their expectation. So it was actually, they were actually pretty surprised to have a full TV crew and me show up at the door. They had no idea it was going to be a robot. It was all pretty genuine. It was all actually very genuine, the feedback. So it was actually quite a bit of fun. That was all done in Orange County. They pick you up in the morning from the hotel, and this is one other thing. They don't tell you where you're going or what you're doing. It's so unscripted that they just want you to be surprised and not necessarily stress or prepare for it. And of course, LA is such a big place that you'd always ask, well, how long's the drive? And they say, well, it's between 1 and maybe 2.5 hours, because in some cases we were driving all the way to the Simi Valley and out past Burbank, up the hills somewhere. So we're pretty much all over LA.
Did you get any feedback from those homes you visited about technology or improving anything at all?
Let me think. Yes.
Or were just very pleased with it?
No, I did get some feedback. Boy, I'm having trouble thinking of the specifics. We got a lot of feedback because this was a full day just on this activity. So it was actually a couple of hours, an hour or so at least, at each location.
We're most interested on how much money they could save?
Actually, this is a crazy thing. The way water is done in most parts in California, or especially in the LA area, is even though there's a shortage, they're not doing the supply and demand, so they haven't increased the water rates at all. What they do, though, is they punish you if you don't reduce your water usage by, I forget what it is, 15% on the prior year. So if you've already been very judicious with your water use, and this is, actually not her neighbor, was really careful. She always hand watered, even though she had an irrigation system in prior years, and now she has to pay, I don't know, a fine every month if she doesn't reduce it by less than before. So it's kind of a screwy system there. Their actual water rates, the most expensive water in the US is in Austin, City of Austin utilities, and right up there too is someplace in Oregon of all places. There's a couple of places where rates hit about $15 per 1,000 gallons as you get into the upper tiers. So who had a crazy water bill this past month? Yeah, they just went, yeah. It's on the news. It's crazy the things they've done.
So they're in severe drought, but yet Austin, Texas has the highest water rates in the United States.
Correct, second highest, but very close to Oregon. Some you missed.
It's just hard to comprehend.
Yeah. it's not. Yeah, the way the whole water is all managed and water rates, and people keep saying, well, golf courses must be a huge opportunity for this because they must be paying a lot for water. Well, no, they've secured their water rights and they negotiate those years in advance, so they can pump. So you still see, even when you're visiting LA now, people just watering like crazy all over the pavement, water running down. You know, they're trying to clamp down on it, but the way they do it is with punitive rather than. It's the stick rather than the carrot approach, I guess. So, yeah. They're going to change it, but it'll take time and probably several legislative sessions. Oh, just one other thing. So one of the things that was nice was to have Bluefish in the hot seat, because these were the guys that had the product, and it just occurred to me, hey, here I'm going out to demo. I'm really demoing something somebody else has put together. So if it doesn't work, I'm actually going to look bad. And actually what happened the night before was they were doing some last minute work on it, the guys at the Bluefish, and they left a hot glue gun unplugged. But you know how the tips stay hot? It melted through the wires on the battery, lithium ion battery, there you go. So the whole Grover caught fire, literally caught fire. The battery protection circuit kicked in, but a lot of power had been discharged, enough to set things on fire. So they caught it, and then had to break up the Bondo and everything to repair the damage. They redid the wiring. The body shop Bondo. They broke that out, repainted it, and tried to get the paint drying. And then they did the final coat of paint just before they were still drying it in their truck before we started filming. So the paint was just touch dry. But it was nice for somebody else to be.
The irony of your watering system catching fire.
Yeah. Okay. There was a lot of deleted scenes. They showed one or two of them as clips on CNBC's website, but actually almost probably a day and a half of actual filming never really made it to film, to any public film at all. I spent a best part of a day with Tilt, and it got reduced down to like a 15-second clip that they put on TV. They did throw me in the deep end a little bit on this one because I wasn't told that I had to pitch to these guys, and I could tell it wasn't a good fit. My pitch didn't go real well, but still very interesting. That was probably the toughest thing. Then there's the real pitch, another trip to LA. From Deanne introducing Jens, telling me, hey, this is who we've got for your investor, to actually the end and the offer, that whole period was really less than an hour. They wanted to keep the film running the whole time. They didn't actually stop to do anything from the time you walked in. They had the cameras already positioned. They already knew where they were going to move. So the whole idea was it would be as close to a real business pitch as possible. It was done in a, as you can probably tell, it was done in a hotel suite, one of those larger suites they have. So you get very hotel-style furniture. But they said, hey, a lot of business deals are done in hotels. We're not going to build a set. We're not going to rent out a space and make it look like a Shark Tank type set. Maybe it's because they didn't want to spend the money. But either way, they wanted to keep it real in this case. So I did a 4-minute pitch. I think it got edited down a fair bit on the TV show. It's always confusing to me because people ask me questions about, for example, Grover, and I realize there's all of the stuff that's in my mind, but it's hard to differentiate between that and what actually people have seen. So sometimes I can be having a conversation and wondering why it's so confusing, and then I realize that people didn't see any of that stuff that went on. For example, just basically the Grover's operation. There's very little footage of just Grover irrigating because it happens slow and it's kind of boring. Any questions about that?
Looks like you're watering the solar cell.
Yes. Well, so one of the patents, patented technologies on Grover is to do with the refill mechanism and how it finds a refill station, refills. There's been other attempts to have mobile devices or irrigators connect to a water source, and they all involve valves and couplings, and it's a very simple system, really. It basically just drives it under the spout, and the water falls onto the solar cells, which has a small, but I think if my math is correct, can actually be helpful, especially in hot sun. The efficiency of solar cells drops precipitously. So any kind of cooling that you can get. So we're actually looking at production of having an aluminum substrate or some kind of way to, no matter where the water's falling, just to drop it. You actually get reasonable payback even if you can just drop the solar cell temperature by 10 degrees or so.
How about splashing inside, cooling it?
I guess that's a possibility. Evaporative cooling, I don't know. I haven't modeled that part of it yet. So then there is a short break before Jens makes an offer. This is Jens Horstman from, it's not the world's most flattering photo, but this is my photo. This is one that the TV company took. He asked me a few tough questions, one of which was on air, a few didn't make it to air. And we discussed business, talked about what they did, and then made me an offer for $750,000 total, but a mix of in-kind and equity. So that was the offer. I was very happy with the offer. The first stage of it would have given initial stage would have given about a $2 million pre-money valuation.
Did you quit your job?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I missed that part. Yeah. So after the first day of filming in Austin, I didn't plan to quit my job because I still hadn't drunk the Kool-Aid with the reality TV deal. But after the first day of filming, I really started to understand what the show was about, and I realized that these guys needed to make some people successful for the show to work. So they. Up till that point, I thought, hey, it doesn't matter if I get the money or not, so long as it's drama, they're going to be happy. But at this point, I realized I could be one of the ones that got funding. I thought I had as good a shot, and that they wanted me to succeed. So yes, I wanted to go 100% on this, and plus, it's really hard to go in front of an investor, even on reality, even on unscripted TV. To say, hey, give me some money, but by the way, I've still got a day job. I mean, you've got to be all in. It's just a really hard. I don't know if anybody's tried to pitch from that position, but it doesn't go very well. And it did come up. That's the first question any investor wants to ask: is, are you all in on this? So yes, I did quit my job.
Yeah, they had pretty well sorted out this investor before you went to them, right? I mean, this deal with this isn't like a cold, your first meeting with a normal first meeting with an investor.
No, that's true. But any normal first meeting with an investor is usually both sides are researching each other anyway, and you've usually got to put something out there, right? So there's very few just cold, hey, what do you do type meetings. So yes, they'd given him some of the information, but they hadn't given him all of the information they had. He didn't know what the product looked like. In fact, his comment afterwards was, this took me by surprise. This is far more applicable in the market, is far bigger than he had really expected. So a lot of that information, they wanted to just give him enough to let him know what the product was about. But yes, they do go out and they do select investors that are in your space or have some knowledge. If you've watched the other shows, you'll see that. Whereas, that's one of the things I struggle with on Shark Tank, right, is they've only got 5 or 6 investors in their pool, and that domain knowledge just often isn't there. And many investors, even on Shark Tank, will decline just on that basis.
So usually it's going to take several, in a more normal thing, you're several rounds into that guy, right? I mean, you're normally into him, gets to know you, comes back, you're back and forth quite a few times. You're not doing it all in one.
In a normal setting, there is
True.
an analyst. There is a financial analyst looking over the investment, just from a black investment, whether they're going to get it back. Just an analyst before it gets to the investor.
Right.
And then the investor actually just reads what the analyst is recommending.
Yeah, this is backwards in the sense that due diligence is always after that initial meeting, but there's extra due diligence that's needed for him to get comfortable with the people that they're dealing with. On the other hand, I think they did give him my resume, so he had a fair idea of what he was getting into.
Who is he and what's his background?
Jens Horstman, his venture company is Crestlight Capital, although they've just changed their website to be Crestlight Productions, and I think it's because they're looking to set up and run an incubator. Well, I know they're starting to look to run an incubator program. His background is he was involved with a company that became Redbox. And actually his partner, David Borlow, was the investor who backed the cake decorating robot that a guy in Beaumont put together. So Crestlight actually agreed to 2 investments on the show.
Beaumont, Texas?
Beaumont, Texas, yes.
Where I was born.
Yeah, and you can guess they went to what is it, Rayo's Bakery or whatever, because how many places can you go to in Beaumont? It seems like it's Rayo's, right? The bakery there.
Rainbow, or is it?
I think it's Rayo's, the bakery. Has anybody been to? I've got friends in Beaumont who always seem to end up at this bakery. I think it's called Rayo's, and that's where they film part of the show. So you don't go back to Beaumont very often, maybe.
No.
Yeah, of all the places, but they had a number of inventors out of Texas. I guess Texas is not just big, but there's a lot of innovative people here. Okay, so how much time have I got? Probably running a little late here.
No, we're doing good.
Okay. So then you start, so filming wrapped up, the offer was made in July, actually, the beginning of July, so really not very long ago, considering the first episode ran, let's see, 6 weeks from ran in August. So it was really only 4 weeks from my pitch, and they still had more pitches to go until they actually went. So the post-production people worked around the clock. They reached out to you a lot for questions, clarifications. There wasn't quite as much promotion of the show as I'd kind of expected. And part of that was because they had other shows like what's the West Texas Inventors Club and a few of these others that they promote. And they promote them heavily up until the time that the first episode runs. And they continue to do that, but then they start promoting the next show. So a lot of it just comes down to timing. And one of the things that happened with Millionaire Inventor is I think the premiere or the second one went up against the first Republican presidential debate, and then the last one went up against the Republican presidential debate the other night. So just bad luck, because. So now I just want to talk a little bit about viewing party. I don't know if you can't see from there, but yes, I am holding 2 bears in my hands. One wasn't enough for that night. Because you have no idea how they're going to portray you or how they're going to edit it. And you said some really dumb things, and you just look like a total idiot at some. So they could have taken it either way. I was fairly happy with how it came out in the end, but there I am with about 30 people hanging out at my place. The celebrity status, there's only 2 people, I guess at least it's happened, only 2 people have been like, oh wow, can I take a photo with you? One guy a few weeks ago at a restaurant in town, and then of course when we were doing the door-to-door. So at least I didn't get any real celebrity status out of it. If you're looking for that, you might go elsewhere. Okay, some numbers. Here's my website traffic. This is Google Analytics showing. So you can see the spike, big spike. That was obviously September 2nd, and then quite a bit actually the following day. One, I guess some people must think, hey, I'll look that up the next day. And 2 is, I think they did a rerun sometime the next day during daytime hours. And there's another blip and another blip, so it's sort of a dampened waveform there.
Shark fin.
Exactly.
Shark fin.
I did actually think there might be a little more traffic. It was only up to about 2,500 visits that night. I was really, I don't know, I really just picked 10,000 would be good. But I can't say the quality was very high. My analytics are showing a high bounce rate. That's because Google Analytics wasn't set up properly on the website. It was only, it wasn't, the other pages weren't registering. But we did get about 400 contacts, well, a mix of email. So that just gives you some idea of the scale. I actually thought it might be a little higher than this, to be honest, but there you go, all good contacts. And I did get tons and tons of emails with just really positive things to say. So if you need, those quotes from, some guy Petaluma that says need this in California, must have, tell the governor or whatever. You get all of this, hundreds and hundreds of those. So it's all pretty positive. If you're having a bad day, just read some of those. Well, this is going to be way too small to see. This is actually the ratings. And it's really hard to find ratings for TV shows, and a lot of people are pulling out of Nielsen ratings because so much of the media is going online and traditional metrics don't work. But if you could see this, this is actually Nielsen ratings. I did find them for this show. It's hard to find for most shows, or they're not even published. But Make Me a Millionaire, Inventor, this is my time slot. 338,000 viewers over 2 years old, presumably not too many under 2 years old. So again, I thought it might be a bit higher than that, but this is at a 10 o'clock slot on the East Coast and West Coast. The Shark Tank, the hour beforehand, had about 600,000, the same in the time slot before. So.
But CNBC reruns these things till the end of time, don't they?
Yes, that was going to be my next point. Thanks, John. Yeah, so they do. And so what you do is you may only pick up 400,000 the first time or 600,000 the first time, but they've rerun the show about 5 or 6 times, and it's never been less than about 100,000 people. So presumably they're more or less unique. You're not going to watch the same thing. So it's up to 1 million, and yes, they will keep rerunning it. They're still rerunning Shark Tanks from 6 years ago, right? And people still watch them. So I think that's really where the value is. It would be nice to see a 6 or a 7-digit over something in the millions, but didn't happen in this case. But they were happy with the ratings, as it turns out. For a first season show, apparently this is about right for it to be picked up. Other shows like The Prophet, Marcus Lemonis, if you've seen him, his show rated worse than this in its first season. And it's been renewed, and now he can pull in up to 1 million viewers for that. So this was the list of shows that I think David sent out on the invite. Obviously, Millionaire Inventors, my show. Startup U, I only know a little bit about these, but Startup U is who's the crazy VC guy, Tim Draper. Well, depending on your perspective, he's a genius or not. But Tim Draper, that's his show. I noticed that was running on ABC Family in a primetime slot for the first episode or the first 2 episodes. I noticed that it's now been relegated to 3 p.m. in the afternoon on ABC Family. So imagine it didn't rate too well. So I don't know what the hopefully the money and the advice I get from Tim Draper is worth it, because from a TV perspective, I imagine the ratings are probably pretty low, but there's no way to access those. Obviously, Shark Tank pulls in tons of viewers. The new one is the Intel-sponsored America's Greatest Maker. Crazy thing is, I got an email directed to me just a couple of days ago from the casting company saying, hey, we've got a new reality TV show. You want to be on it? Here's what it is. Grover's a perfect fit. And I replied and said, you aware that I've been on? Oh, no, we weren't. We just thought it would be a great idea. So I guess when it rains, it pours. And I said, well, actually it would be kind of interesting to do it again and compare, but I have this contract that says I can't, and I'm guessing you probably don't want somebody that's been on another show just a few months before either. So that was the end of it. But if anybody thinks they're still really searching for this show, they're still looking for some really good stories. So if you have one, let me know. We've exchanged a few emails backwards and forwards with the casting people for that. So I said I'd give a shout out tonight. So here's your chance.
Because they emailed me, but we don't actually use the little Intel module, and
yeah.
So I was like, it's too much work.
Has anybody here done anything with the Intel Curie module?
Did you have to use it for the
Yeah.
What exactly is it?
Well, that's why I asked, because I don't know. No, it's a real
little tiny wearable module.
Yeah.
And it just came out like 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's a bit of a computing machine.
Yeah.
It's by far the lowest power thing that Intel's ever done. I mean, they've done low power stuff before that used to still be measured in watts, but I understand this is this is reasonable computing power at a couple hundred milliwatts, and then low power states that it's viable for battery operation. It's not a microcontroller, it is a full microprocessor, and I think that's about all I know. It doesn't have a display driver, doesn't have a camera, so it's actually, you know, if you've got that as a constraint, it does kind of restrict things a fair bit.
Right. But what I didn't know is like how flexible they would be around that, or whether they would like pay to change it. So if you had something built that wasn't using that, would they kind of give you experts to kind of redesign it, and then you could kind of pretend like you've done that?
I strongly suspect they would, but
I'm not sure. I mean, I read all of like, this was public, and it's a competition. At the end of the day, I mean, the show that you participate in, it's not a competition, but over there, there's $1 million at the end. So I don't know what the rules are, but I'm assuming they will not have one company versus the other. So.
But in the end, does it help Intel much if people don't watch the show? I mean, you could argue Intel's looking for, you know, I don't know. I still think that's what they're still looking for the show. I think it was just a matter of finding some people to use a Curie module and stuff. I think they want some good personal stories, is my guess as well. Because even engineers that think we always like to just, you know, want the hardcore engineering story, you know, even we're suckers for a good backstory. So I think that's what they're doing, and I think if you had the backstory, they'd find a way to make it work. But that's, yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
So once you left the room over there, he gave you the offer, you said yes, you shook hands. Was the TV production company gone? They left you, or was anything after that? They kept on talking with you, asking you, whatever?
Right. Well, yeah. If you watch the TV show, there's a little bit after it where it's just myself and Deanne, you know, doing the congratulatory.
Sure.
For some of the pitches, for some of the pitch, she was in the room, but then I think she left when he made the offer or whatever. And then I got to talk to my wife on the phone, and all this happened, like I say, just one after the other. They wanted to just keep it flowing. After that, cameras shut down, and we got to have dinner, Jens and I, and actually George Zidane, at a restaurant downstairs, where we could talk a bit of business. Although, you know, I had the advantage that I'd been on camera for days at that point. He'd just come in off his plane straight on camera, so he was still, you know, interested in the. In you know, the whole story, because it's quite an experience just to get put on camera.
Sure, but I'm asking from like the Bluefish company, like they don't want to see you anymore, or is that how does it kind of, how do you separate from that? Is it like a clear cut?
Right. No, actually, even now the both still trading emails with Bluefish, and of course, you know, they've been paid by the show to help me, and that's done. But they're still interested in continuing to do work because they are, when they're not on TV, they are you know, a for service industrial design company. So they would really like to do more.
And they know that you have money now.
Right, right. Well, the money side of things we're still working on closing the deal. The investor is still interested, and things are still moving forward, but it does take a while, and it hasn't been that long. So, and the good news is with a show like this too, you also get other people contacting you. So it's been really good from that perspective. It's not just homeowners; it's partners and investors have been reaching out. So overall, I was very pleased with the Make Me a Millionaire crew, the stuff they did. They really did take a genuine interest. They needed to be successful because they're not looking, perhaps like Shark Tank, to you know, have some people that are miserable failures on camera to do their thing. That they would prefer that all 12 inventions got funded. Yeah, JC.
I know you're still under contract, but from what you can say, if you could do it all over again, lessons learned, what would you do different and why?
What would I do differently? You know,
seems like nothing.
Yeah, probably worry less. Actually, that would be the main thing, because you get pretty stressed about not being ready. And every time I was concerned, about the next day or something not working. Just understand that they want to tell you a story. Plus, I think what I mentioned in the beginning, just understanding the premise and getting, I really wish they could have offered it and I could have asked earlier, because then I would have just really understood the show earlier. And in the end, maybe that didn't matter, but I just would have been more comfortable with the whole concept.
So from the start to the end, how many months lapse? Was it over a year?
Yeah, from the time I filled out was right about this time last year was the time I filled out the application. The Skype was in late September, early October, and then filming was all done in July, on TV in September, or for some of the other inventions in August. So, I mean, fairly quick, I suppose. Okay, cool. I think that's it. So yeah, thanks for listening. And if you want to sign up on Grover for updates or just read my blog or whatever, follow along. We'll keep you posted as I close funding and build this business.
When do you publicly launch? When do you go to manufacturing? Hit the retail stores?
Well, I'm actually doing some, the plan was to do some field testing next summer and then market introduction in 2017, but I'm really trying to find a way to turn, now that I have all of these people that want to pay, that say they'll write me a check tomorrow if I have something, I'm really looking to turn my field testing into a paid pilot production run, maybe a limited run of 500 units. I really think there's enough interest that I can actually sell those. So I'm trying to define a minimum MVP to actually get to market next summer.
Can you do a Kickstarter, or are you prohibited from doing that?
No, I can absolutely do a Kickstarter. One of the ideas I had was to actually have a Kickstarter basically ready to go when the show went to air. The challenge was I didn't have a path to get a product for next summer, and I really felt people would not want to wait an entire summer. And with a high value product, if it was a $100 product, that would maybe work. But and plus, even with a TV show, just separating yourself from some of the scams that are on crowdfunding right now may not necessarily be assured. Cool. Yeah.
How long does it take to water a lawn with this stuff? You get a couple of gallons in a tank.
Yeah, it's about 3.5 gallons right now. It could be more. I'm trying to keep it as light as possible from a power consumption point of view, and also from you don't want a 200-pound object rolling over your lawn generally. For a typical lawn, it could be 40 to 60 hours of operation.
How long?
40 to 60 hours of actual watering.
40?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a lot of time. Because it's a robot, as long as it completes before it starts again, it doesn't matter. Yes?
Wouldn't the area near the refill station become a high traffic area?
Yeah, so this is probably the number one question that comes up, is from watching the TV show, they were just running it fast around the yard so that you could see, it moving, so there's stuff going on. It actually moves really slowly and basically saturates the soil as it goes. So it only runs over an area once. It really would never encourage root growth if it just sprayed its tank out, went back, because by the time it came back, you need to get there's quite a bit of science. I've actually had quite a few feedback from some experts, even since the show's on getting the rate fast enough to actually soak those roots, and it's really just dropping water out the bottom.
Well, I mean, it would just keep, what I'm saying is that the area next to the refill station would get a lot of traffic from the robot, so it's like...
Oh, the traffic, yes.
It's almost equivalent to foot traffic,
Correct. Well, yeah, except the robot, even with water in it, weighs a lot less than a person. It's more like a large dog, or actually not even a large dog.
Okay.
Is theft gonna be a problem with this kind of device, especially being a high price ticket item?
Right. That's not been a problem so far with lawn mowing robots. So that's really my frame of reference for that. That comes up. You have it keyed to your house or your smartphone. So somebody takes it, they would have to hack it to do anything with it. And it's really, plus an alarm will sound if you pick it up. So that's not really been an issue with lawn mowing robots. Cool.
Great. Well, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Good job. It is announcements time. Who has an announcement? Great.
My name's Conley Giles, and I'm with the School of Invention, and we are a platform that is currently in beta to help inventors connect with collaborators, manufacturers. We've also got an RFQ system on there. So right now we're taking beta signups. So it's just schoolofinvention.com. So love to have somebody else sign up. We'll send out the beta invite after we get your emails in about another month or so.
Anybody else? No announcements? All right, I think it's time to go check your invention, my friend. So we're going to all go down and check the Hoover.
Which part of the lobby are we in?
As soon as you get out of the elevators, I think it's to the right. Well, based on what elevators you take, but it is going to be to the right.
From here, it's basically a large emptier part of the lobby.
Over here.
Yeah, right in front of us at the bottom.
I'll give you my card.